It is Tuesday, January 2nd, 2026, 8:15 a.m. Right now, we are exactly 15 hours into China's export restriction on silver. And already, 37.4 million ounces have vanished from COMEX vaults over the past 47 trading days. The Shanghai premium exploded to over $8.12 per ounce. CME just raised margin requirements for silver futures for the second time in 2 weeks, sending leveraged longs into a tailspin. And yet, you won't find this on CNBC. Bloomberg is quiet. Wall Street smiles. But I'm telling you now, stop everything you're doing. Turn off the noise. Look at the screen. Because something far more dangerous than any interest rate or GDP forecast is unfolding. The silver market has fractured into three parallel realities: paper price, physical price, and the zombie price, a number printed on a screen that no one will honor in the real world. The plates beneath this market are shifting, and we've just felt the first tremor. So ask yourself, do you believe in coincidences? Or is this the first breach before the entire system breaks open? To understand what's happening today, we need to rewind the tape. Not just days or weeks, but decades. Because silver has always existed in the shadows of power. It's not just a precious metal. It's an industrial backbone, a monetary relic, and increasingly a geopolitical tool. And on January 1st, 2026, China made its position very clear. Silver is now a strategic resource. New export controls kicked in, restricting outbound shipments of refined silver. Only 44 Chinese firms, handpicked by Beijing, are now licensed to export. Everyone else? Locked down. That matters more than most people realize, because China doesn't just mine silver. It refines 60 to 70% of the world's silver supply. It is to silver what Saudi Arabia is to oil. This isn't just a trade policy, it's a weaponization. And it comes precisely as the Western financial system is doubling down on silver derivatives, paper contracts, synthetic exposure, and ETFs that may or may not be backed by actual metal. So let's define what we're really looking at. The panic price is the price when buyers suddenly realize they can't get real metal and scramble to pay anything. The zombie price is the illusion printed on a trading screen, kept alive by algorithms and liquidity, but totally divorced from real supply. And the physical price, that's the one nobody talks about, the one being whispered between refineries, vaults, and sovereign buyers. Right now, all three prices are diverging. And the arbitrage that once held them together? It's broken. Because when the system depends on the movement of metal and the metal stops moving, the truth begins to surface. So let me ask you, what happens to a market when the price becomes irrelevant? And the only thing that matters is possession. On the screen, silver is trading at $73.80 per ounce on COMEX. But if you're a jeweler in Mumbai, a solar panel manufacturer in Taiwan, or a mint in Munich, try sourcing physical silver at that price. You'll likely face a premium of $5, maybe $8, even $10 per ounce, if you can get any at all. That's the fracture. The paper price is saying one thing. The real-world price, screaming another. In Shanghai, spot silver is trading at a premium of 8.12 USD Oz over the LBMA benchmark. Let that sink in. China, the world's largest refining hub, is pricing physical silver nearly 11% higher than the world's largest financial market. This is what we call backwardation on steroids. Usually, futures trade above spot prices to account for storage and risk. But not now. Today, buyers are so desperate for immediate delivery that they're paying more for metal today than metal tomorrow. And this isn't theoretical. Warehouses in Asia are emptying out. The Shanghai Gold Exchange has reported an 86% drop in vault silver inventory over the past 9 months. Dealers are placing no delivery notices on contracts they once filled casually. And in New York, COMEX has lost over 37 million ounces from its registered silver since October. That's more than 1,100 tons, drained out in silence. Why isn't arbitrage fixing this? Because the flow is broken. You can't arbitrage what you can't ship. Between export bans, delivery restrictions, and rising political risk, silver no longer flows smoothly from east to west. It pools, it sticks, it waits for a better deal. And that creates what I call the three-headed silver market. The COMEX price, heavily shorted, algorithm-driven, and increasingly detached from physical reality. The Eastern price, driven by demand from real buyers with real delivery requirements. The ghost price, futures far in the curve that no longer imply delivery, but just options for speculation. This is not a mispricing, it's a splintering, a crack in the mirror. And once a market accepts that the price on the screen doesn't buy you the product in your hand, trust collapses. Now, ask yourself, if the price of silver no longer reflects supply and demand, what is it reflecting? On December 29, 2025, CME Group, the operator of COMEX, quietly made an announcement. They raised initial margin requirements on silver futures to $25,000 per contract. That's a 25% jump, the second in just 2 weeks. No press conference, no interviews, just a bulletin tucked away on their website. And yet it shook the entire derivatives complex. Why? Because margin is oxygen. When you raise margin requirements, you choke leverage traders. You force them to post more collateral or liquidate. And in a market where physical delivery is rising and spot prices are spiking, that pressure becomes lethal. So let me ask you, who benefits when small longs are forced to close out, but large shorts are protected? Because that's exactly what this looks like. Let's step back. In 1980, when the Hunt brothers cornered the silver market, COMEX raised margin requirements 5 times in 8 weeks. Silver collapsed from $50 to $11. The longs were wiped. The shorts, mostly Wall Street insiders, were saved. In 2011, when silver again approached $50 Oz, CME hiked margins 5 times in 9 days. The market tanked 30% in 2 weeks. Again, margin used as a weapon. And now, we're seeing the same script, but this time the stakes are higher, because the underlying metal isn't there in volume. Registered silver at COMEX is down nearly 70% from its 5-year average. The float is drying up, so if too many longs stand for delivery, there may not be enough metal to cover. And what do you do when you can't meet delivery? You raise margin, you force liquidation, you reduce the number of contracts converting into real silver. This is why I say CME isn't just managing volatility, they're managing survival. Now consider the silence from the major banks. JP Morgan, HSBC, Citibank, they're among the biggest players in precious metals. Their positions straddle both the physical and the derivative markets. But none of them have made a public statement. Not about the shortages, not about the premiums, not even about the margin changes. Why? Because acknowledging the fracture means acknowledging the risk. And that risk doesn't just threaten silver, it threatens the entire system of paper pricing. So again, I ask, are we witnessing a simple margin adjustment? Or is this the slow motion response of an institution that can no longer meet its promises? Liquidity is a funny thing. It's always there, until it isn't. And by the time you realize it's gone, the exits are already blocked. In late December 2025, something extraordinary happened. The only silver ETF in China, operated by Becerra Asset Management, stopped accepting new clients. The reason? Too much demand, too much price volatility, and a growing disconnect between the fund's net asset value and the physical market. Let me repeat that. An ETF designed to give you exposure to silver was overwhelmed by people trying to buy the real thing. Now, fast forward to Europe. In Zurich, industrial buyers are reporting 6 to 8 week delivery delays for bulk silver orders. Fabricators in Germany have begun stockpiling silver contacts, warning of tightness not seen since 2008. And then, London. Normally, the silver leasing rate in London, the cost to borrow physical silver, hovers near zero. In December, it spiked to over 2.8%, the highest level in more than a decade. Why? Because short sellers needed to borrow silver to fulfill delivery, but no one wanted to lend. That, my friends, is a short squeeze in slow motion. But here's the twist. Instead of admitting shortage, the market simply raises cost, tightens collateral, and hopes you stop asking for delivery. The illusion of liquidity is preserved, on paper. But underneath, desks are scrambling, contracts are being renegotiated, metal is being hoarded. Now step back. In COMEX, registered silver is falling. In Shanghai, premiums are rising. In London, borrowing costs are spiking. And globally, vault audits are being delayed or kept private. Tell me, what kind of healthy market behaves this way? This is not volatility. This is systemic dehydration. And once liquidity vanishes, trust is next. Because when the time comes to convert paper claims into metal, and everyone runs for the exit, only a handful will get out. The rest? They'll be holding contracts, not ounces. Promises, not possession. And in that moment, it won't matter what the screen says. It'll only matter who has the keys to the vault. When the silver market fractures, the consequences are not confined to traders or hedge funds. They ripple across economies, across borders, and into the very architecture of global finance. Let's start with China. By locking down silver exports, Beijing is signaling that silver is now a strategic resource, not a freely traded commodity. This move mirrors earlier restrictions on rare earths and graphite, but silver is different because silver sits at the intersection of energy, electronics, and money. And by hoarding it, China is effectively saying, we no longer trust the Western paper pricing system. We want metal, not promises. Inside the country, domestic demand is surging. Silver jewelry sales are up. Solar manufacturers are lobbying for direct allocations. And sovereign buyers are entering the market quietly, accumulating outside of public exchanges. Meanwhile, in the United States, the response is more subtle, but just as telling. In November 2025, the Department of the Interior added silver to its critical minerals list, a first in history. Shortly after, the Department of Commerce launched a Section 232 investigation, examining whether foreign silver imports pose a threat to national security. Think about that. The same clause once used to impose steel tariffs is now being aimed at silver. And why? Because the U.S. imports over 75% of its silver, primarily from Mexico and Canada. If China cuts supply and others follow suit, the U.S. will be forced to rebuild a domestic silver stockpile, or risk shortages in solar, electronics, and defense. Then there's Europe. The European Chamber of Commerce in China issued a rare warning in late December. Most of its member companies expect to be negatively impacted by the export restrictions. Why? Because European industry doesn't just use silver, it refines, fabricates, and exports high-tech components built on it. Suddenly, entire supply chains are at risk, and in the background, the east-west divergence is accelerating. In the east, silver is priced like a finite strategic resource. In the west, it remains a derivative playground, leveraged, collateralized, and increasingly fragile. This divide isn't just economic, it's philosophical. In the west, the game is about price. In the east, the game is about possession. And that philosophical split is now becoming policy. BRICS nations are reportedly in talks to establish a bullion settlement network, allowing them to trade physical metals outside the dollar system. India has increased bilateral trade in precious metals with UAE and Russia. Brazil's state mining company just announced new silver exploration projects. And Russia, long dismissed in the silver space, is quietly expanding refinery capacity in the Urals. All of this points to one conclusion. The world is entering a multipolar metals regime where trust in the COMEX LBMA price signals is rapidly eroding. And for investors, that shift is existential. Because if the price is no longer global and the supply is no longer free-flowing, then the old assumptions break. Your ETF might not track physical metal, your futures might not deliver, your contract might not mean anything when it matters most. Ask yourself, what is a financial claim worth if it settles in nothing? So here we are, a new year, a new policy from China, a silver market cracked wide open, paper promises piling up on one side, physical metal vanishing on the other. And between them, a chasm of trust. Let me be clear, this is not about silver going to $100 or $200. That's just a number, a headline, a distraction. This is about the integrity of the system. Because when markets no longer price reality, when contracts no longer settle in substance, And when the rules change mid-game to protect insiders, then we're no longer playing the game. We're being played. I'm not here to tell you what to buy or when, but I am telling you this. Understand what you own. Understand how it settles. And most of all, understand the difference between exposure and possession. Because when the music stops, it won't be the fastest mouse that survives. It'll be the one holding real cheese. So share this video. Talk to people you trust. And above all, stay awake, because the fracture has begun, and the world is about to find out what silver is really worth.